Hello and welcome to Opt to Thrive, episode 58, the Midlife Skin Series Part 2, Cleansers, Creams, and the Truth About Anti-Aging Skincare.
Welcome to Opt to Thrive, your go-to podcast for women's wellness in midlife, designed to educate, support, and inspire you to live your very best life. And now your host, Dr. Karina Sims.
Hello, coming to you again from the not-so-sunny sunroom. It is another beautiful gray day, a beautiful gray rainy day out there. The trees that do still have leaves have gorgeous yellow and orange and some reds. It's lovely, and it is quite lovely to get some rain, and the farmers, I think, are pretty happy that we're getting some rain. I have had a few people approach me about the last week's podcast about my very naughty son, his little prank that he pulled. Very interesting. What didn't make it onto that episode was the fact that my son had asked me to just keep that to myself when I saw that the tattoo was not real. Sorry, spoiler alert if you haven't listened. He was going to travel here, later on the same day, and he wanted me to keep it a secret from my husband, which initially I thought, I don't know if I can do that. That's pretty awful. And then I remembered all of the practical jokes and pranks that my husband has played on the children over the years. And I thought, well, you know what? I think I'll just let them handle this. And on reflection, I think that it's his practical jokes which has caused my children to pull these practical jokes on me. So yeah, I think he deserved it. And let's just say that my husband was just about as relieved as I was when he saw him that night and realized that there was no tattoo. And then thought that my tears were actually faked. But no, we cleared that up pretty quickly. My reaction when I realized that it hadn't actually gone through with that tattoo was I actually felt like we needed to go out and celebrate that he actually didn't have that tattoo. So, all right, I think it's probably time to jump into what we're going to talk about today. I'm pretty excited about what we're going to talk about today. We are going to talk about the skin care products side of anti-aging. Last time we talked about the collagen and the red light therapy. And I know that when I see all the options when it comes to skincare, it's super, super overwhelming. I think today's going to be really helpful. I am so excited to give this information to you today because it really has helped me clarify what was actually, useful, what was actually worth spending my time and my money on in terms of looking after my own skin. I've been pretty slack with my skin. I mean, I've gotten better with skin care as far as sunscreen over the years. But I haven't really done a lot for my skin. So today I am going to share with you what I've learned. Now, again, just taking a step back, it's always good to get some background information in there. Our skin is the largest organ of our body. I know that many of us don't look at it that way, but it is. It helps us stay healthy and well by acting like a barrier to keep us safe from trauma and things that might get in and irritate us and infections. Aging itself can compromise our skin's ability to do this. It gets thin. It isn't as elastic as it once was. It gets caught. It's not going to snap back very easily. And even our sensations, not as good as it used to be because these little nerve endings that we have in our skin, they're not even as good as they used to be. So we might not notice things like something's hot or pressure and friction, on a foot and some footwear that's not fitting well. So it might take us a little bit longer to clue into, that's really hot, move your hand away, or that's causing a blister on my foot. It just might take a little bit longer than it used to. Or we might not notice an injury as quickly as we once did. It might show up sometime later when the inflammation sets in. The nerve endings in our skin also help tell our brains where we are in space, so our balance can be affected, which means that, we are at risk of falling if we lose our balance. And it's another good reason to keep up those muscles. So if we do lose our balance, hopefully we can catch ourselves and prevent ourselves from falling. And if we do fall, we have this nice big bulk of muscle surrounding our bones and protecting our bones and joints. So just another reason, ladies, to make sure you're out there keeping those muscles strong. So with all these changes our skin goes through, it means that there are going to be a few things that we're going to experience. We are probably going to bruise more easily. You may have noticed that. Where the hell did that come from? Does that sound familiar? My husband's always commenting on, where did that bruise come from? We can also get a bit itchy as we age and with menopause. So you probably maybe have noticed that. I know a lot of the ladies I see in menopause clinic, that's one of the complaints. Very common. There is actually something also called senile pruritus, which is when we get itchy, but we can't explain why we're itchy. Most itch is going to be relieved with moisturizers unless there's something more going on than dry skin or just aging skin. So there's a little tip for you. But as we talked about in the previous episode, our skin loses its scaffolding, right? A good portion of our scaffolding, that collagen and elastin that holds it up and makes it firm and plump. And we end up with wrinkles and sagging and thinning and loss of that elasticity. So a little fun fact, or not so fun fact really, is during the first 5 years of menopause, our skin loses about 30% of its collagen. It does slow down after that, and from there we lose about 2% of our collagen every year. So the big question is then, is there anything we can do, anything we can put onto our face? We're being sold this all the time. Can we believe it? Are there things that we can actually put on our face that can help us either prevent some of this loss of collagen or improve our aging skin in some way? Pigment, texture, plumpness, fullness, wrinkles. Is there anything that we can do? So today I'm going to structure what we talk about around how we typically approach our skin. I'm going to start with cleansing. We're going to go to moisturizers, and then we're going to talk about a few individual products that are sold to us for rejuvenation. It was a pretty overwhelming topic to look into for a few reasons. And so, and I really had to find a way to organize it so that it reduced the overwhelm in my brain. It was pretty darn tricky also because this is a quadrillion-dollar business, right? The beauty anti-aging product business. So a lot, if not most, of the studies have been done by lots of people with vested interests. And then there are lots of people like on social media claiming to be experts and telling you must do or have or use this or that product or that ingredient. It was an absolute minefield of rabbit holes. And if you've listened to me for any length of time, you know that I can get caught down some rabbit holes. And I certainly did with this one, no exception. It was heaps of fun, but a little exhausting because I do take it very seriously, doing my best to give you the most accurate, up-to-date, evidence-based information that I can. So having said that, along the way, I found a very good book that I wanted to mention. It was so helpful to kind of back up what I was finding in the studies. The book is called Skintelligent. It's by a dermatologist, a very experienced dermatologist, Dr. Natalia Spearings. I really like her style. She pretty much tells it like it is. There's no BS. I've been following her for a little while on social media. I hadn't even realized that she had written this book until I was in and out of all these rabbit holes. And that's one of the things that I found. A couple of other medical professionals that I really trust also follow her and have commented on some of her work. So I was very grateful and reassured that I had found a very good resource. to back up what I was already finding. So I'm so excited, as I said, to share this with you today. I myself have learned so much, and I have actually changed my skincare routine because of the information that I'm going to share with you today. I think you're going to get a lot out of it. So let's just jump in. So as I said, we're going to start with the cleansing. So the purpose of cleansing makes sense. It's to get rid of the makeup, or if we're wearing sunscreen, or pollutants, so dirt and grime and dust and sweat, to wash our face. But if you aren't wearing makeup or sunscreen, you don't have any grime or dirt or sweat or, pollutants on your face, then guess what? Just plain water will do the job. In fact, 80% of the cleansing is actually being done by the water itself. And cold water is better than hot or even lukewarm water, because the hot and the lukewarm water can cause drying out of the skin. So it's better to use a bit of cold water. And oil-based cleansers are the best cleansers to use. They're gentle and they're non-drying. We want something that makes our skin not feel tight and dry afterwards. And we also want to minimize any scrubbing. So cleansers are pretty easy. You don't need anything fancy. Again, the recommendation is an oil-based cleanser. It's better for your skin, less drying. And that's all really I'm going to say about cleansers, because moisturizers is where all of the kerfuffle was going on. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a shocker. At least it was a shocker for me. It really, wow, blew my mind. Okay, you might already know this. I'll be very interested. So most of us would think of moisturizers, I would imagine, because I know I did, as something that's going to put moisture into your skin and keep our skin moisturized, right? But here's the thing. A moisturizer is not used to put moisture into our skin. Rather, it's used to keep the moisture in our skin. So putting a moisturizer on prevents the water from leaving the deeper layers of the skin, and it also at the same time smooths out any flakes of skin or dry skin, and it can make it feel soft and supple. So was mind-blowing to me, that the moisturizer is not actually putting the moisture in, it's actually just keeping the moisture in our skin. Now, water is the main ingredient in most moisturizers. It's often listed, if you looked at the ingredients list, you'll see it often as aqua. The water is just part of the product. It's not actually going into the skin. That wetness that you feel when you put it on your skin, that water is actually going to evaporate. It's just in there as part of the product so that we can rub it onto our skin. So essentially, we're really just wetting our skin and drying our skin. And if we do this repeatedly, that can actually dry out our skin, because that drying evaporative effect of the water can actually dry out the skin. So how much moisturizing you're going to get is directly related to the consistency of the product that you're using. A greasier moisturizer will improve skin hydration more than a less greasy moisturizer. So products that are more watery and less greasy will need to be reapplied more often to get the same level of hydration you'd get by just using the greasier moisturizer, even just once a day. So apparently the best moisturizers are ointment-based instead of water-based, or anything that has like a lip balm texture. But most of us don't want to walk around with a greasy face, especially if we're also then wanting to apply makeup. So a less greasy moisturizer in the mornings can be used, and then the more greasy one at night. Now, Dr. Spearings doesn't recommend products until it comes to this one product. And she is very clear about her recommendation of using Vaseline at night on your skin. And in fact, she says by using it at night, you might not even need any moisturizer during the day. I have never thought about putting Vaseline on my face as a moisturizer, but looking at the mechanism of hydration, it makes perfect sense, right? It makes sense. It's going to hold the moisture in your skin. It's not going to let anything out. Vaseline apparently was the very first moisturizer ever invented. It's so funny because I don't know about your grandma, but both of my grandmas used Vaseline for just about everything. You got dry lips? Vaseline. You got a little cut on the skin? Vaseline. Got a rash? Try some Vaseline. I think they were really onto something. Vaseline has anti-inflammatory effects. Who knew? My grandmas. It also, contrary to what you might think, I know it's certainly very counterintuitive to me, but it doesn't clog pores. It can actually help heal the skin barrier. It's really good to use after things like chemical peels or dermabrasion, especially. It is the best at trapping water in the skin and least likely to cause irritation. Another one that can be used is pure virgin coconut oil. You have to be careful though, because coconut oil derivatives, like some of the ones that you find in cosmetics, can be irritating and they can cause a reaction to skin. Now, if Dr. Spearings, who is very much an evidence-based practitioner, is telling us to use something as simple as Vaseline at night, and even just water if you don't have any grime to wash off your face in the day, then you're probably going to guess that all of those products being sold with the miracle anti-aging ingredients are most likely not worth the money. But I want to go through a few of the ones that you probably see a lot of and break them down a bit for you. One of the ones that she mentions in particular are serums. Apparently, serums are just watered down moisturizers, and we don't need them. She talks about how they were just invented as another kind of beauty product to sell. We also don't need eye creams. Apparently, an eye cream is just another moisturizer. And she says, just put some Vaseline on your skin. That'll help just as much. Amazing. Our skin also is self-exfoliating. So she also says that we do not need to exfoliate. We do not need to buy an exfoliator. So let's go through a few of the products that you probably see a lot of being advertised. And let's break them down a little bit because there are some interesting things to know here. Okay, let's start with antioxidants. This is a term that no doubt you have heard thrown around not only for skincare products, but for food as well. So what is an antioxidant? Before we can answer that question, we need to talk about free radicals. So free radicals are these little unstable molecules that our bodies create as a normal part of making energy in our cells. And things like sunlight and pollution, smoking, and other environmental exposures can create even more free radicals. When too many of them build up, they can damage our cells and they can speed up the aging process, not to mention some diseases. Now, the idea behind antioxidants is that they can help neutralize these molecules before they cause harm. Common topical antioxidants you've probably heard about would be things like vitamin C and vitamin E, coenzyme Q, and some plant-derived polyphenols. So let's talk about vitamin C because this is probably one that you've heard about. Vitamin C is also known as ascorbic acid. It's the main antioxidant found in our skin. Vitamin C has some pretty important jobs in the body besides being an antioxidant, and one of them is to help us form collagen. You may have heard of scurvy, which is a condition caused by not getting enough vitamin C. I know when I think of scurvy, I think of people on ships traveling, in the old days for months at a time and getting scurvy because there were no fruits and vegetables on the ship. So you get it by not having enough fruits and vegetables, essentially. Our bodies can't make it, so we need to get it from our diet. So citrus, red peppers, broccoli, tomatoes, potatoes, lots of fruits and veg will have vitamin C. Scurvy is one of the oldest known nutritional disorders that we know about. Without vitamin C, our collagen can't be formed properly. So this can affect all the connective tissues in our bodies. Our blood vessel walls in particular are formed by collagen, and without it, they can become very fragile and we can bleed. It makes sense then that bleeding gums can be a sign of low vitamin C. We can bleed inside around bones. So with scurvy, you might get bone and joint pain. You can get little red or purple spots called purpura on the skin, or ecchymosis, so bruises. So your blood vessels are fragile and causing bleeding under the skin. The good news is that it takes a good few months without any vitamin C for us to become deficient. So it's not overly common, though it still does happen. I have had a couple patients over the years with vitamin C deficiency, even here in the Riverland where we've got abundant citrus. But vitamin C is one of those skincare ingredients that sounds amazing on paper for things like collagen production. But when you look at the research, the data doesn't really back it up. The problem is that vitamin C is quite unstable and it doesn't always penetrate the skin very well. So we're not even sure how much is actually getting in there where it needs to go. A lot of the studies are also small, they're short term, or they use products that have lots of different ingredients. So it's hard to know if the vitamin C was responsible for any of the improvements, right? Another claim is that it can help with pigmentation, but there's no evidence for that either. If you're not vitamin C deficient, then there really is no clear benefit from taking any more. So it doesn't sound like it's worth the money. The same is pretty much true for those other antioxidants that I talked about, vitamin E, coenzyme Q, and you may have even heard niacinamide. They're all promoted as ingredients that can help protect the skin from damage and slow the signs of aging caused by sun damage. And in theory, it does make sense, but in reality, we're still not entirely sure how much benefit we actually get when they're applied to the skin. Many of the ingredients are unstable, they don't always penetrate the skin very well, and a lot of studies looking at them have the limitations that I mentioned earlier. So while they may help, the evidence definitely isn't strong enough to say they're miracle anti-aging ingredients. And at this point, again, probably not worth the money. Okay, now let's talk about hyaluronic acid. Another big one that you see on all kinds of products. Again, on paper, this one also makes a lot of sense. Hyaluronic acid is a substance that our skin makes naturally. It helps keep our skin hydrated and plump. Our levels of hyaluronic acid start to decline from about our mid-20s, and things like sun damage can speed up the process even more. So the idea of replacing it with a cream or a serum makes a lot of sense. But hyaluronic acid is a large molecule, and we're still, again, not entirely sure how much of it is actually penetrating beyond the surface layers of the skin. In fact, there isn't any real evidence that it does. Most of the benefits from hyaluronic acid seem to come from improving hydration rather than actually reversing skin aging or rebuilding collagen in the topical form. The hyaluronic acid injectables do have evidence for stimulating collagen production, but those are in fillers that would be injected by a professional, like a dermatologist or a cosmetic professional. So as a component of a moisturizer, it can make the skin feel temporarily softer and smoother, but lots of moisturizers can do that, as we've already covered. So when you see all the advertising, keep in mind that many of the studies on hyaluronic acid have been funded by skincare companies, and some of those studies weren't particularly rigorous in their design. That doesn't mean the results are wrong, but it does mean we should be a little cautious about taking the marketing claims at face value. Now, what about hormones? We know that estrogen is important for skin. As I mentioned earlier, there are some significant changes happening to our skin around that final menstrual period. So when estrogen levels fall after menopause, the skin becomes thinner, drier, less elastic because our collagen production drops off. We see more wrinkles, become more noticeable, and the skin loses some of its firmness. So it makes sense that giving us back some estrogen should help, right? Unfortunately, no. Again, no great evidence. Menopause hormone treatment can be super helpful for symptoms, as we already know, like hot flushes and night sweats, sleep disturbances, and just overall quality of life because of that. And if your skin improves while you're on it, awesome. But if your goal is simply younger looking skin, the evidence just isn't there. So what about all those influencers putting estrogen cream on their face. Dr. Spearings actually did a great little review of the literature on her Instagram account of February of last year if you want to have a look. It's really worth having a look. The bottom line is that there is no evidence that it helps the appearance of the skin. She talked about one study where the skin got thicker and therefore the wrinkles got deeper. One of the biggest issues for me, though, as a menopause health professional, one of the main problems with the estrogen cream on the face is that the topical estrogens we use have been through rigorous safety testing, right? The vaginal ones have been tested on vaginas, and the topical ones have been specifically tested on arms, thighs, or stomach, depending on which one it is. We know how much you're going to absorb from that location with that formulation. We do not know how much you will absorb from your face. And the problem with this is that if we have too much estrogen, it puts us at risk of endometrial cancer. We know that vaginal use doesn't need a progestogen to balance it out because we know how much you're absorbing and we know that you're not going to get a heap of absorption going through to the rest of your body. But if you have one of the topical ones that you use on your arm, leg, or stomach, so a systemic formulation that's going to go to your whole body, you absolutely do need a progestogen if you still have a uterus to protect the lining of your uterus. The general consensus from evidence-based clinicians is to not put these creams on your face. Okay, so far we haven't really come across anything all that helpful or worth the money to improve aging skin, but there are a couple of things that do have some evidence, so let's talk about those. The absolute winner here is, drumroll please, tretinoin. Unlike all those other so-called miracle anti-aging products, tretinoin or tretinoic acid has been studied extensively in hundreds of clinical trials and has repeatedly been shown to improve sun-damaged skin. Maybe not ridiculous improvement. You're not going to look 20 or maybe even 30, depending on how old you are, but proven improvement. So what is it, I hear you saying, and where do I get it? So tretinoin or tretinoic acid is a derivative of vitamin A, and you can only get it on prescription by a doctor. It's been used to treat acne since 1969, and what people started to notice was that those people who were using it for acne developed smoother, less wrinkled skin. So how does it work? It works by stimulating collagen production, reducing the breakdown of our collagen, and improving the skin texture. It can also help with pigmentation and restore some of the elasticity of our skin. Many people notice that their skin feels softer and smoother within a few weeks, but the more significant improvements in things like wrinkles and pigmentation and overall skin quality usually take some months. It can be irritating to the skin, so you generally start slowly, maybe using it 2 or 3 days a week, and slowly over time build up to regular use. It can collect in the creases around your nose and eyes, that lower eyelid area, and where your smile lines or crow's feet are. So only apply a small amount to those areas and don't put it on the upper eyelids. Dr. Spearings also talks about putting it on over your Vaseline at night if you're finding it irritating. There are also different strengths, so using a low dose is a good idea as well. It's also a good idea to use all of your other skincare products that you're going to use in your morning skincare routine and just leave your tretinoic acid for your evening routine with your moisturizer after cleansing your skin if you need to with an oily cleanser. In the first few months, it can also make your skin more sun sensitive, so be extra vigilant with the sunscreen. Apparently, the increased risk of burning does go away after about 6 months, but as you're going to see in a second, it's still good to be vigilant with your sunscreen. We know that, don't we? Now, I do need to point out, so you don't get duped, that tretinoin is not the same thing as the over-the-counter retinol products. Retinol is a derivative of vitamin A, and vitamin A has a few other derivatives, but they must be converted by the skin into active retinoic acid, and they can't be, so it makes them much less potent. Again, the studies aren't great for these, so buyer beware. Now, another product that does have some evidence for improving the appearance of aging skin is glycolic acid. Glycolic acid works by gently exfoliating away dead cells, which can help the skin look brighter, smoother, and more even toned. With regular use, it may improve the appearance of fine lines, pigmentation, and skin texture. It seems to be pretty well tolerated, although it can cause some irritation in some people, especially when you first start to use it, and if you're using higher strengths. It doesn't have the same level of evidence as tretinoin, but glycolic acid is one of the few over-the-counter ingredients with some reasonably good evidence for improving skin texture, pigmentation, and the visible signs of photoaging. Okay, now let's talk about the sunscreen. I don't think anyone will be surprised, as I said, that this is making the list. But what I do think is that what I'm about to tell you will probably surprise you, because it surprised me and it made me think a bit more about my use of sunscreen, which is pretty good, but like most things, it can improve probably a little bit here or there. So there is evidence that just by using sunscreen, we may get some improvement in our skin. I've only ever really considered myself that it is preventing my skin from getting more damage, but our skin is constantly trying to repair itself. It's like in this dance of being damaged by the sun and then trying to repair the damage. So then it makes sense if we can minimize the damage from the sun by protecting our skin with sunscreen, we just might be able to tip the balance in favor of our skin doing more repairing than we are getting damaged, if that makes sense. Now, if you work indoors, you may not even need sunscreen, but if there's going to be any exposure, then applying it in the morning will last the entire day. If we're out in the sun, we absolutely need to be wearing it, especially here in Australia, and we need to be reapplying it every couple of hours. Most of us are probably not wearing enough sunscreen. We should be using around a half a teaspoon for your face, neck, and ears. And if you included the whole body, then somewhere around 6 teaspoons of sunscreen. A good sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30 is best. Remember, SPF 15 means you can be in the sun 15 times longer than it would take to burn your skin, but SPF 15 only blocks 93% of UVB rays compared to the higher SPF. So SPF 30 blocks 97%, SPF 50 blocks 98%, and SPF 100 blocks 99% of the UVB rays, which are the ones that are mainly responsible for our sunburns. Regardless though, again, you still need to reapply it every couple of hours while you're out in the sun. So that's it. That is pretty much what I have for you today. I hope that you've gotten a lot out of this. And before I go, I really want to leave you with something else that I learned that I think really puts things into perspective. And it makes me pretty happy with my Oil of Olay daily moisturizer with the SPF 30. And that is learning that some skincare companies buy their product from private manufacturers who also sell to other people, and then they just slap their brand on it. Now, depending on how much the company pays these private manufacturers, they might have, some fragrance added or somehow make it a little more of their own. But the bottom line is that you could be paying a higher price for something at the department store for nearly the exact same thing that you could have gotten at the chemist for much cheaper. Certainly changed my way of looking at things. And everything that I've learned and that I've spoken about today has really kind of changed how I'm going to approach my skin in terms of I have already started using the Vaseline at night, and it wasn't nearly as thick and greasy as I thought it was going to be. And I woke up feeling quite moisturized. And I have been using tretinoin now for a little while, but again, really hit and miss just when I would remember it. And now that I know what I know, I will be trying to build that up a bit more regularly and looking out for my skin a bit more. So I hope that that's been helpful. I would love to hear your feedback. If you haven't rated the show already, I would also really appreciate it if you could take a second just to leave a rating and maybe even send me a little review. I read everything that I get. If you have any topics that you're interested in hearing about, let me know. If you can think of someone who might benefit from hearing this information, please pass it on. And I hope you have an amazing week. Until then, I hope you opt to thrive. Hey, before you go, if you're a midlife woman who wants to feel better in your body, whether that means improving your health, building strength and confidence, or working towards weight change in a kinder, more sustainable way, I have created something especially for you to support you. It's called the Midlife Health and Body Reset Kickstart Guide, and it's a free 7-day foundations guide to help you understand what's going on in your body in midlife and what actually makes a difference from here. You can download it using the link in the show notes. And if you're ready to take that work to the next step and you would like some personalized support to make it work, I run a 12-week midlife reset program where we work together on body recomposition, so losing body fat while regaining muscle, the absolute best thing we can be doing in midlife to combat midlife metabolic convergence. You get a custom strength training program from an exercise physiologist, weekly coaching with me, personalized nutrition guidance, and accountability to help you actually follow through. If that sounds like what you need, head on over to optothrive.com to find out more about the program and maybe even book a call with me to ask me any questions that you have, see if we're a good fit, and see if this program's for you.
The Opt to Thrive podcast is designed for information purposes only and is not engaged in the giving of medical advice. The information provided on the podcast should not be used for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. In no way should the information provided by Opt to Thrive be considered medical advice, and at all times the advice of a medical professional should supersede recommendations from Opt to Thrive. If you have or suspect you may have a health problem, you should consult your healthcare provider. The views expressed in this podcast are purely that of Dr. Sims and do not in any way reflect those of the institutions she contracts medical services to.
Thank you for listening to Opt to Thrive. If you've enjoyed listening, please rate and share the podcast. You can visit our website at optothrive.com and leave a comment for any subjects you would like to hear more about.